And you're listening to Jesus Christ That's Funny. My name is Ethan Moore.
And I'm Pastor Dwayne Black. Nice to see ya.
You too. Here we are in the Sanctuary Church in Fort Lauderdale.
Yes, we are in the session room.
We're in the holiest of holies, the sanctum sanctorum, if you will, behind two sets of closed doors.
That's true. We are.
Your parishioners cannot reach you right now.
They by text. They can.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do they text you?
Yeah, they do.
What do they text you?
All sorts of things. You know, I have one person. You know, I got text just about an hour ago. A guy who is going to probably on Monday be put on death row, and they texted me that I need to go see him tomorrow. So,
Does he have a cell phone? Can he text you?
He can't, but other people within the congregation do.
Death row?
Yep.
In Florida?
Yeah, he will.
Was that like Stark or something?
Yeah.
Wow, that's Stark Prison.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they have the... wait, do they still use the electric chair in Florida? They used to.
You know, they're actually...
Old Sparky, they called it.
They're actually...
When I was a kid, I remember my mom would be like... That's where if you stay on this road, Ethan. Old Sparky lies at the end of it.
Did she really say that to you?
She said things like that.
No way.
Oh, my mom knew. She knew at a young age that I was trouble, I think.
Yeah. No, this is a guy who here in Fort Lauderdale he killed another man and happened to be on. You can actually watch it on YouTube. It's
you can watch the murder.
Yep. Yeah. He. There was a guy who was hired to remove his car. His car was parked in the wrong place. And so he backed his truck up to remove it and started to. And this young man came out and said, you know, I'm going to kill you if you don't let my car down. And he said, can't do that. Look, this is being videotaped. You shouldn't be, doing this with the gun. And he shot him, So
wow.
It wasn't...
That's called sticking to your guns.
Yeah. It was. Well, I mean.
By the way, this whole story is hilarious.
No, I don't.
For
I don't
our
mean
comedy podcast here.
I don't mean it to be funny, but when you meet when I saw the video and then I met him, it was two different people.
Well,
the drugs and alcohol that were involved in him doing that, and
so he was high,
his mental illness that he has. On top of that. So I go see him tomorrow in prison, and then Friday he goes up against one of the judge.
So he's a Presbyterian?
No, he's not.
Oh, well, why are you ministering to him? Don't you only minister to Presbyterians?
No. And he's one of the public defenders originally put me in touch and said, would you please go see him?
What's his religion?
The public defender?
No, the convict.
The convict. He's probably Pentecostal or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So do they allow you to bring some snakes in there?
No, but we can talk in tongues if we want. No,
do you
I'm teasing.
Speak in tongues?
No.
Okay.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get...
those are the kind of texts
you get text.
I get.
Oh, wow. So you really put me on my place there. I'm like, do they text you?
Yeah.
You're like, well, actually, this guy from death row. I'm like, whoa, okay. All right.
Yeah, so those are the kind of texts I get.
Yeah. Well, it's I know you do a lot of work around the death penalty.
Yep, we really do.
You're not a fan.
Concerned about that? No.
It's ironic that you don't believe in the death penalty because your whole religion was started by the death penalty on Jesus.
That was capital punishment.
You should be in favor of it.
No,
we need to get. How are we going to get the next Messiah to come?
It's the resurrection problem we have an issue with.
Oh, okay, okay. So you want to your next thing is you want to get rid of the gates around cemeteries.
Which was.
We want them coming back now.
Yes, that's right. Very, yes, that's exactly right. So which I
like how you appreciated my joke in different moments
in multiple
there.
levels. It just kept going to different levels.
I was like, this isn't even very funny, but then you're like, no, it is. You were getting it more and more.
Very clever, yeah.
Right.
I thought about it on a Jewish level.
Right.
It was like, okay.
Yeah, I have my moments. Well, today we're not just here to talk about death and the death penalty. We're actually going to talk about, I think it's called homosexuality. I think that's what it's called. Homosexuality.
Well, this was a question.
I asked a question at the end of the last episode, and also Anna Lepoli, our guest a few episodes ago, who is gay and who's my comedy partner. She asked a question when she was our guest, which is that why does God hate gays? And you said God doesn't hate gays. Mm-hmm. And then the question I have, the follow up is, Well, if God doesn't hate gays, how come everybody has this impression that God hates gays? Why are there so many Christians out there? And I'm sure there are many who would debate you when you say,
Yeah.
oh no, God's fine. And it's like, well,
Right.
that's all very, very good and well for you to say, Pastor Dwayne. But when you have, people holding up signs that say God hates fags, and when you have, Rick Santorum or whatever member of the Christian right in the political sphere, or whoever's leading the charge for, not to have transgendered bathrooms, or, whatever, the latest cultural war around homosexuality, they're not allowed to adopt. It always seems like there's a Christian leading the charge, against that stuff. So why are there, if God doesn't hate gays, why are there so many Christians who say he does?
You're right. Everything you said is right. You're absolutely true. And that's one of the saddest things that I have to deal with. Is
that God does hate gays?
No.
Oh, not that. Okay.
No, that you have these groups of Christians, basically rallying around this whole idea. And part of it is that many of them, they don't swim in the very deep end of the pool very often. They swim kind of in the shallow end, meaning that.
Is this a pool that's reserved for heterosexuals?
No, it's open to everyone. But,
you mean intellectually?
Intellectually, yeah.
Oh, they're stupid. They're simple. They're stupid.
Well, no, I didn't say it that way.
Okay.
And
don't mince words. Come on.
Your words are okay. I don't disagree with them. But I think what happens is sometimes
just leave it to me. I'll say what you really mean, Pastor.
They skim the top of the scriptures, and they don't understand what the words mean, and they don't understand why the words are the way they are, and they don't understand sometimes
they're ignorant. They're foolish.
The depth of it.
They're shallow.
And that maybe everything is not, that it's not just this equals this equals this, that there's a bigger picture.
Yeah, Pastor, but what about Leviticus?
Yeah, what about it?
Well,
what about Genesis, Sodom and Gomorrah? What about,
these are things that were, so I was raised, as people who listen will know, I was raised in a fundamentalist Baptist church, Bible-believing church, as they would have said, and with a literalist interpretation of the Bible.
Literalist.
And they would bring up Sodom and Gomorrah, and bring out those two hot male angels that we may lie with them. No, have my daughters, Lot said. No, we don't want your daughters.
What kind of father is that?
And Lot's like,
really?
yeah, I've got some daughters here. I've been having sex with them. You want to turn? Like this guy's terrifying, by the way, Lot.
It is. He is scary.
And his wife gets turned into a pillar of salt.
Yeah.
What about him? Yeah. And anyway, so they said no, we want those angels. Which, by the way, I thought angels were sexless. So how come it's gay that those guys wanted to lie with the angels?
Well, the real
in the story of Lot in Genesis.
The real historical part of this is that back at that time there was this understanding that when you took over, you destroyed another group of people, a tribe or whatever, that the worst thing that you could do to the men would be to have sex with them because it treated them as a woman who was considered at a very low pace.
Right. It was more about domination.
It was about punishment and domination.
Right,
it had nothing to do with sex. And so what they were really trying to do is that in this time when travelers come, you were supposed to open your houses to them. You were supposed to let people in. You were supposed to take care of them because you could die. So what their sin of Sodom and Gomorrah is about not being hospitable to people, not opening your door to them.
Yeah, that doesn't really have the the pizzazz. I don't like that. Oh, they weren't nice enough to people on the road. Like, no. It's because they were gay. That's way more. I mean, it's way clearer. And
that's why God destroyed it.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. It's and there's this deeper level that Jesus even talks about the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, talking about his disciples, that if people turn their back on you when you go into the city, to leave the city,
shake off the dust.
And he said they will be treated even worse than this. He was talking about that.
Well, I got to go back a little bit there, Pastor, because I missed something there, because I always thought that the Sodom and Gomorrah, the Sodomites and the Gomorrans, I guess. I thought that they. By the way,
yes.
How come it's sodomite to mean so homosexual, and how come it's the sin of sodomy or the crime of sodomy when you have anal sex, or oral sex? Shouldn't it? Why isn't it Gomorrah-y?
Gomorrah-y.
Yeah. How it just doesn't roll off the tongue.
We could start changing it right now.
Yeah,
right here.
that's right.
This is all it takes.
I want all the British penal statutes to change it from sodomy to Gomorrah-y. Let's do that. Yeah, I think Gomorrah really got the short end of the stick, or maybe Sodom, depending on which way you look at it. But no.
Gomorrah's going, no, I don't want any of it.
Right. They're like, yeah, we'll just quietly stepping away as Sodom gets all the limelight there. That's right. Just slinking off into the background. No, I want to know, because my understanding of that story was that it was a kind of a generalized debauchery that Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because of. It was a licentiousness. It was maybe they're not, feeding travelers on the road, but also I was Baptist, so it was the gambling, and it was the drinking, and it was the sex acts and all kinds of things, like not just gay, but probably all kinds of orgies and things like that. That was the picture that was painted for me when I was a kid. It was kind of like Las Vegas or Hollywood, if you will. Like some place where. Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors, just places where the ordinary, good old-fashioned American values, from the 50s, don't seem to apply. That was the idea.
No, and part of it is this idea that it was evil, but part of the evil was that it was going away from God. And part of the idea of going towards God is this understanding and caring of each other.
But wasn't there like a carnality to it?
There was a feeling of that.
It was there was a sense in which these people are getting far away from spiritual things and towards things of the flesh.
Right. And what happens when you the farther you go away from the idea of taking care of each other, the farther I go away from that, the more I go to a point where it's like it's all about me and what I want. And whatever I want it now, and that's not Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Well, were they polytheistic? Was that part of it? I'm just trying to think. What was so bad about Sodom and Gomorrah that God said there's no one that's righteous in there? If you can find even.
If we can find 10, and don't you love it when people argue with God? Yeah.
Yeah. You couldn't find 1,000. Yeah. How about 100? All right, 10. It's like a Maxwell Smart scene. You're like the entire 4th Cavalry. Would you believe the 3rd Cavalry? All right, 2 Boy Scouts on roller skates. It's
that's one of the things I love through the Bible is this idea that we argue with God. I don't know where in the Jewish side you always argue with God. We get to Christianity and it's like, no, you don't argue with God. And part of the arguing with God is good. Part of the arguing with God of why. And what was this about? And I have a sign in my office that says, where is God in this? Because I'm constantly looking for, like, when I'm dealing with somebody, and there's an issue, where's God in this? I don't know. I can't figure it out. Where's God in the hatred that I see people have towards homosexuals? That you have people that are gay. And you have, we had 66 churches in our presbytery, and 12 of them, left the presbytery because we said it was okay to ordain gay pastors, and to preach. And part of it was, listen, you already got them in there. They're just not out of the closet yet.
Right.
You're not doing anything odd or, but they were like, nope, can't do that. Not you gay pastor, no way.
Well, so there you go. It continues, and it
does.
And so where's the source of this?
So people take the scriptures wrong and they read them.
So Sodom and Gomorrah, the story of Lot, and the story of his angelic visitors that were going to be sodomized, for lack of a better word, by the townspeople. That was not the sin. That wasn't why God wanted to destroy the.
No, that wasn't the original thing. The point was that these people had become so self-serving about themselves and about a group of people that you're trying to take this community of people and teach them a new connection to God and a deeper walk with God and the ability to love each other and take care of each other and watch over each other. And these people had turned everything just the opposite because it was all about them. It was, imagine having, say a small town, 300, 500 people, and they were all, people that all they cared about was themselves and getting ahead. So stealing something, it's okay. The point is just don't get caught. Lying, no problem. Just make it a big lie. The 11th commandment.
Wow, I'd hate to own a general store in that town.
Oh.
Seems like it would be tough.
Yeah,
tough dealing with these.
You want a relationship
reprobates.
with somebody? You're a man. Just take it.
Wow.
So yeah, so when strangers come into town that are angelic, they say we want to do what we can do we want the worst to happen to them.
Okay, all right. I'm going to say that should have been destroyed by fire and brimstone. Okay. All right. Well, the other one. I mean, there's a few. I think, but the next one that people always bring up is Leviticus, where it says something like, and I'm going to have to remember. I'm reaching back into my Bible studies here, but I think it says something like, "It is an abomination for a man to lie with a man as a man lies with a woman," something like that. Right.
Yeah.
So it's an abomination, and they would really emphasize that when I was a kid. They would be like, no, it's not just a sin. It's not just something bad. Right. It's an abomination. This is the worst word you can imagine for something in the Bible, and God detests it.
Yeah, and it's again, the Bible is written to try to.
That one's pretty clear cut, by the way.
Well, it
that
is.
Statement.
It is until you really look at the Hebrew, and then you start to realize that that's really not.
In Hebrew, abomination is good.
No. No, it's not. It's but the point is that when you transcribe things, Hebrew has less words than English. Okay, so there are multiple words, and those words have different meanings. And sometimes the writings are written so that there's 2 or 3 meanings that are being forced into this one idea. And so the idea is that you have a group of people that, and you have to, anytime they say you shouldn't be doing this, or you shouldn't be doing this, or you shouldn't be doing this, it's because people are doing this, So you say you shouldn't be deflowering sheep, Oh yeah. It's because there is somebody out there doing that.
Right. So, you don't need a law against sheep deflowering until all the sheep have been deflowered.
And so when you start saying, you shouldn't lie with your father's wife, you shouldn't lie with your own daughter.
Cut it out.
Yeah. You got to realize that these.
It's an abomination.
We're doing this, and so the idea of trying to create new people and more people, and teach them this way to live, was this understanding that you should not have this relationship because we're trying to create more people. And we're trying not to create, people that are, that's my 6th cousin that I had sex with over there, and I had sex with this person. You're trying to create a group of people that are actually pushing towards
genetic diversity.
Yeah, that's right. That they love God and they're trying.
I think it also says it's an abomination to get a tattoo.
It does.
A couple lines before that.
Yeah.
So maybe abomination is not. I mean, the funny thing about that is that, I mean, I would see guys in church with tattoos.
Yeah.
And they'd be the guys who'd be like, if you're gay, that's an abomination. I'm like, hey, buddy, let me talk to your tattoo artist. I think maybe he's gay. No, wait, that's not. No, but still, like, it's. I think so. So people seem to fixate on this idea.
On the words. Yeah.
Well, on the homosexual idea, yeah. People are, and maybe it goes back to the the sort of the puritanical cultural connection with America in general, so that there's this emphasis on sex, this focus on sex in our society and our culture. So that says the guy with a sex podcast.
That's right.
Get it at sexonkava.com, by the way. If you want to hear a little raunchier podcast than Jesus Christ, that's funny. Sexonkava.com. But yeah, there's this focus on sex where people are obsessed with it. And it's almost like Victorian, like they want to talk about it and think about it, but it's evil, it's dirty. But they want, oh my God, is there a scandal? Is there some gossip about that? Can we talk about that? They want to fixate on it in a negative way. And if you had a healthier attitude toward it, it would just be another part of life.
Well,
it's not something you have to focus on so much.
I had this 80-year-old lady,
negatively or positively.
I had an 80-year-old lady say that there were just a bunch of crotch Christians out there. And I thought that was great.
What's a crotch Christian?
That's all they were focused on. They were focused on people's sexual connection. That was it.
Right.
That everything was about somebody's crotch. And I thought that was so funny because she was an elderly person, but she was saying there are groups of Christians that's all their concern is.
Yeah. It's bizarre.
It is. And
I mean, it's to me, it is an unhealthy obsession with sex.
Right.
You know what I mean? And of the order of someone who has a sex addiction.
Right.
It's almost like someone who should be in like a sex addicts 12-step group. Right. Some people think I should be in that one, by the way, but I say no. But it's almost of the order of that, except in the negative. Like it's like they should be a sex addict, but they're repressed.
Right, exactly.
So it's like their sex addiction has to come out, and they project psychologically onto everyone else around them.
Right.
Like, oh, what's this person? Who's this person having sex with? Oh my God, look at her. Oh, look at this person. You know, oh, are the gays doing this? What's going on at the bathrooms? Yeah. Like, that's what they want to focus on. I mean, instead of dealing with their own issues.
I mean, look at the three biggest steeple churches within our area. Every one of them, the senior pastors have had affairs and gotten caught. And not just like one affair, but I mean multiple affairs.
Is this a steeple church?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Listen to the pastor.
That's right.
That's called, he's promoting himself.
No.
He's attacking the competition. He's like, hey, maybe you guys like to go to churches where the pastor, had sex with the congregation. But if you get tired of that, come on down to the sanctuary. We don't have a steeple. Also, I keep my steeple in my pants. That's right. So,
well, but I mean, that's it.
I got you
the
there.
Visual.
I got you with that one.
I've seen the visual. Yeah. So, but I mean, that's what you end up with. You end up with people that they're so concerned about other stuff, and and they constantly go back to the problems and the issues. And I mean, these were people who were homophobic. I mean, these were ministers who were you shouldn't be gay. You shouldn't be
Oh, really? These were the anti-gay ministers too.
And all of a sudden, what are they doing? They're messing around with other people. And you're kind of going like, what's that all about?
You'd think that those pastors would be preaching that you should be gay because then it would reduce the competition for the women.
That's right.
More and more single ladies for them to do the old steeplechase with. I don't know. I think we may have run the gamut of the steeple double entendres at this point, but
I'm sure you got one more in there. Come on,
I'll think about
it. That's it. Steeple.
This is the church. This is the steeple. Open the doors and then have sex with the congregation. Apparently, that's what happens.
That's
so. Yeah. Well, I know.
So why did they start believing that God hated gays? What was that all about?
That's my question for you. And I think it's that obsession, and it's the obsession leads you to look at the verse that says, it's an abomination to, take your donkey out of a pit on a Sabbath. And it's also an obsession. It's also not to say obsession. It's an abomination to take your donkey out of the pit, rather. Oh, and it's an abomination to mark your flesh with a tattoo. Oh, and it's an abomination to for a man to lie with a man. Wait, what was that last one? I wasn't paying attention, but now you have my attention. I heard what you said about the man with the man. What's the word you used there? Abomination? Okay, that one stuck in my brain.
That's right.
That's...
Well, people go check down the list. They go, okay, I don't have a donkey, so I don't have to worry about that.
Everyone has a tattoo, though.
Yeah. They do,
Except me. I don't believe in it, but...
Actually, I don't have any tattoos.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I don't believe in it, like, spiritually. I think it's stupid.
I think you should get a tattoo on the air.
Tattoo? I'm going to get a swastika on my forehead.
Charlie Manson.
That's a little Charlie Manson thing. Yeah. No, I just don't. I think I don't care.
Yeah. No.
I never thought of anything that was cool enough to put on.
No.
And I think I almost stand out more by not having one. Because everyone has one to be unique. I'm like, no, I never got one.
I know.
Wow, you really are unique.
I love it because there are a lot of young churches. Really great to see that you see, worship leaders come up and they put their arms out and you see all these sleeves, so you go, okay, they've had another life. They've had a life before they came to this. And it's interesting. But I don't have any issues with people getting tattoos. It's like, go for it. Enjoy it.
Yeah, but you're okay with everything.
I'm not.
You're everything. Like, you can have gay sex, you can have tattoos. Who cares what day you pull your donkey out of the pit?
Yeah. Well,
it's all fine.
I think Jesus was kind of like that,
Yeah, I know.
Like, okay, Jesus, so what'd you say about homosexuality? Crickets.
Nothing.
Crickets.
Yeah. Well, so we've covered Leviticus. It seems like a focusing on the wrong thing there, and kind of cherry picking what you want to, the overall thrust of it back in the day seems to mostly have been about being fruitful, multiplying.
Right. There are 8 verses. There are only 8 verses that they use, and they pick them out.
In the Old Testament?
Yeah, Old and New Testament.
Oh, there's some in the New Testament. Yeah. So then let's talk about that. So, and I always thought this was strange too in the in my church upbringing in that Baptist church was that they would say, okay, here's these very clear. There's this clear-cut verse in Leviticus. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then they would say, oh, but Jesus came to bring a new law, and it transcends everything, and so don't worry about this verse about not eating pork, for example, or the Sabbath, or et cetera, because Jesus transcends all those laws.
And we like barbecue.
And we love barbecue in the South.
Right.
So it's all fine. It's all fine. And I'm like, well, if it's all fine, then why not homosexuality? And then the answer is, oh, well, there's other verses in the New Testament that are against homosexuality. So what do people say in the New Testament that's against homosexuality?
There are statements that that Paul writes, and again, it's you have to translate it from the English into the Greek, and then into really the Aramaic of what it was being said, and
then you add the lisp.
Yeah, then you add the lisp.
Okay, sorry.
And you find that really the entire scriptures, you start going through it and you really start looking at the translations. I mean, Jack Rogers, one of the Presbyterians, started to write a book about homosexuality with the idea of proving it wrong, and he got halfway through.
And he went gay. Oh no.
No, he got halfway through and he goes, I've done every word study there can. I've researched everything. Nothing in the Bible talks about homosexuality. And
wait, that's not true, is it? I mean, there's a lot of we just talked about the things that talk about it.
But it's not talking about homosexuality as in sex. First you have to start off, what is sex? Is raping somebody sex?
Yes.
Boy, we're gonna have to start all over again.
Well, I mean, it's
raping
involuntary sex.
Is raping somebody sex? No, it's not.
You say no.
No.
I mean,
it's not. That's not sex. That's domination. I am superior. There's nothing sexual. See, we need to go into what sex is to you, because I'm really worried now. Now it's starting.
I mean, what I want to know is there any other kind of sex? Because I thought that was the only way you could do it. No.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about.
Well, I mean, it's not.
The handcuffs in your car mean something new to me.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so you're defining sex in a very limited way, I guess.
How are you defining sex?
I guess it's when you. For me.
Yeah.
I would have to penetrate a woman with my penis.
Right, and so it's just a physical act.
Yeah, we can just break it down like that. Yeah.
I don't think anybody that you've had. Well, I can't say that.
I mean, there are more dimensions, but if we have to be, I mean, if you're going to pin me down and say you need to define it, then I'll use that as my definition. If I have to define it.
All it is penetration.
Yeah, that's the definition, but it's very reductionistic if you want to just reduce it to that.
Well, then what is it? What is sex?
Well,
what is having sex with another person?
Well, you would need to keep going, so you would keep penetrating them.
Okay.
and hopefully there's some emotion involved, and some intimacy and some connection. Emotion? Hopefully there's some love there, and there's some real connection, some erotic desire.
Right.
There's a closeness, hopefully a spiritual closeness.
Is there something connected between the two people besides a penis and a vagina?
Are we talking about like bodily fluids or something? Or? No. No, that's what I'm saying. The people are connected, Right. I don't like to make differences between body and mind or spirit or soul, because I don't believe in any of that stuff. This is hocus pocus, Pastor. I think we're all just the same. It's all just one thing.
Right.
Like I think my body and my soul and my spirit are all part of the same totality, the same reality. So
if you can experience your body, your soul, all in one totality together with the body and soul of another person,
right,
then that is a relationship of sexual relationship.
Yes. Although you could have that
just,
kind of connection without sex too.
Right.
So then we're talking about the difference in this. Then that would mean if you're having that sex and also penetration.
Right. Yes.
For me, I mean, like Anna. So Anna's a lesbian. She has sex with women, and presumably she's not necessarily penetrating them, or she's doing it in some different way. So she would have to answer that question differently.
She's having, well, and she did. She spoke. That she said that that she enjoyed. That was something, the intimacy. And that there was something closer than that, and then the point is that rape is not sex. It's not. It's domination. It's no concern about the other person or individual. It's all about me, and it's not even to a point where people, the person who's raping that person is having a sexual experience. It's just that they're dominating that person, and only in the way that they can, in the most intimate way that they can. And so that's why we need to talk about this with you a little deeper. I'm really concerned.
Well, I'm not trying to, it's like I'm not talking about like I'm not making any value judgment when I say the word sex.
Right.
I presume no value judgment there about like good sex or bad sex or exploitative sex or you know what I mean? Like you could say, oh well, if you have sex with a prostitute, for example, and it's just an exchange of money, and it's a mercenary transaction, and there's no love. You're like, well, that's not sex. I would be like, I think the Fort Lauderdale Police Department may beg to differ there, for example, or the woman may beg to differ, or the John, or the pimp. I don't know. Like, I mean, I think it's I think if we're just going to say what is sex, okay, sex is just it's physical sexual contact between two people, or maybe more than two, and then that's sex. And then we can talk about, is that sex also rape, or is that sex also intimate sex, or is that sex also all these other things? But you want to define it narrowly. It's fine. You can define it the way you want it.
I just think
I want to get back to the gays and why God hates them.
I think you should give out your phone number right now so that all the women who have been raped and men that have been raped can call you and explain to you why that wasn't sex.
Oh, it's.
So your number is what?
Well, it's like, so you're saying that Bill Cosby didn't have sex with those women? I'm
saying Bill Cosby raped those women.
Yeah, so he had non-consensual sex.
Yep. There was no sex involved. It was
non-consensual.
I mean, he raped
sex.
them. That was out and out rape, and that's the sad.
But
thing.
I mean, okay, but let me put it this way: is there such a thing as consensual sex?
That you agree to have sex with somebody else.
Yeah, is that a thing? Consensual sex?
Yeah.
Well, then there must be the converse, or the inverse, non-consensual sex, which we can define as rape.
Sure. Yeah. I'd go.
So that's what I'm saying. It's you're getting caught up in the definition, and like to me that's not so important. I think we may have a different definition, but I think we can agree on like sort of the morality of it.
So, but you still believe rape is sex, right?
Yes, rape is non-consensual sex.
Non-consensual sex. Okay. And the sex, we're clarifying that it's sex because somebody is ejaculating.
No, because.
Well, then what is it?
You can have sex without ejaculating.
So explain that a little. I mean, and I think I'm leaning towards the rape side of it, and you're leaning towards like.
When I lost my virginity, I didn't ejaculate.
Okay.
The first time.
You remember that long ago?
Yeah. Yeah, the girl just lay on the ground, and I was like, what? What's happening right now? And then she came and like this is getting graphic for our listeners here, but she came and she basically got on top of me, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm not supposed to have sex until I'm married, and I threw her off me and ran out the door and got in my car and drove away.
And so,
but I had sex with her, I lost my virginity to her. That's how I would look at it,
I think,
It was like a brief penetration, but I was in there, and so I count that. I count that.
Well,
I'm counting it.
You're
all right.
Counting, okay, I get it.
I mean, that's my life. That's how I define it. I'm not a rape victim, so I might, maybe they have a different way of defining things. I'm not meaning to denigrate anyone else's definition of sex or rape or anything like that. I'm trying to be understanding. But you asked me.
Yeah, no. And
you asked me for my view, so I'm just giving it to you.
I appreciate that, even no matter how wrong it is.
Well, we can agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, and it is. I think that you run into when you run into people that have been raped, you run into situations where you say that was not sex. That was as close to being beaten up or being
right.
That it was physical, and probably because.
Well, I know you've been through this with your daughter,
right? And
which you talked about on the very first episode.
And I've had friends that have been put in jail and have been raped in jail, and that was an act of domination and an act of they could have beaten the person up but this was, how do I make you feel even worse than you are?
Right.
How do I make you be concerned about that in your head for a long time? And people get out of prison. They're 10 years later. They're still dealing with the issue.
Sure.
That they got raped. Did they have sex? I don't know if that's what I would call it.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I would say is that you would say, well, that you can't be sex without mutuality, and I would say, oh no, you can. You can have sex without mutuality. So you're just saying that's outside your definition. I'm saying no, it's still within the definition technically. It's not. I'll put it this way. It's not a kind of sex I ever want to have.
Right.
From either side of that, I don't want to ever have sex without a mutual connection.
Right.
I don't sort of from the perspective of just humanity or morality or where I want to be spiritually. Obviously I don't want to be raped, but also I would never want to be in a situation where I'm having kind of this one-sided thing. And like I said, I lost my virginity. It was kind of one-sided almost, It
was really one-sided, yeah.
I was not into it. I mean, I was into it,
right?
In the sense of I was, horny 16-year-old boy, but I was it was against my sort of spiritual principles at the moment, and so, yeah.
And how old was she?
She was my age, 16 also.
Okay.
She maybe I was 17. I was 16 or 17. I actually can't remember. I think I was in my last year of high school. And, she, I believe back then it was well, you're not allowed to have sex before marriage. So then obviously you have to have oral sex only. Which I was well, so it has the word sex in it, but technically that's not sex. So Jesus is okay with it.
Thing?
It was, it was really was it was like a Bill Clinton kind of hedging or a.
But is it? I mean, isn't that hysterical? Because throughout the scriptures, you run into the same thing, and that is that there's this 50 shades of gray. That as soon as you say you can't do it, is
this a domination thing? 50 shades of gray?
No. There's all these, but what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And that's why Leviticus is so funny, because it really does. It's you can't have sex with your mother, you can't have sex with your sister. And they're going, well, what about my aunt?
Right. No, not her either. All right, sit down, Gerald.
Yeah, that's right.
Stop. Okay, put your hand down. Let me finish the list first.
So that there are people kind of going oh no, we got to do that too. They can't do that either. They can't do that either.
This really puts a crimp on my weekend, Moses. There, I don't. Was it Moses?
Yeah.
I don't know.
They believe that he wrote many of those books.
Well, okay, so let's try to bring this in. Let's bring this home, Pastor.
Okay. Yep.
So we've gotten a little off track with definitions. It got really uncomfortable there for a minute with you trying to get me to define sex differently than you or the same as you. But no. So if the law of the Old Testament is transcended, by the law that Jesus brings, if you're a Christian, then. And if you're an Orthodox Jew, right, then you might say, okay, no tattoos, all right, no homosexual sex. This is the law, and we're going to follow every single piece of it, right?
Exactly. But if you stone your children if they misbehave.
You stone your children too, yeah, that's right. But if you're,
we pick and choose. We continue to pick and choose.
If you're a Christian, then you sort of have this. Get out of jail free card with Jesus. No, he transcends the law in a certain sense, right? He said that he didn't come to bring away the law, take away the law, I think. Right. But he also said.
But he came to fulfill it.
To fulfill it.
And that was to show us that it was deeper and larger than just A, B, C, and D. I mean, and it comes into even when you go into the book of Acts, you find something really pretty interesting with the Jerusalem Council, is that you've got all these Jews. I mean, because Christianity is a Judaism piece at that point, and you got all these Gentiles and Jews going, if you wanted to follow Jesus, you got to do all of these things. And the first thing will be circumcision.
Right.
And you got Gentiles going,
what?
no.
Yeah, time out. These are the Judaizers.
Right.
Right.
And so, and what they did is they decided, why are we putting this burden on these new people to follow Jesus?
Right.
Let's change.
Why do we need two phases?
Right.
You know,
And
why don't we just do the Pert Plus shampoo and conditioner in just one step? You just switch over. You're a Christian now.
Well, and they said to him, they said really straightforward. They said, you know what, you can. It would be great if you stayed kosher, and it would be really great if you didn't have a lot of promiscuity going on. You know, and just try to follow the way of Jesus, you know, and that was about it. It wasn't even like do it. It was like, you know, it would be nice if you did. And so suddenly you start realizing this idea of God and the rules are getting spread wider and
Right.
wider and wider and wider, and we continue to try to bring them back down to this very, you know, finite area, and you're like, God doesn't work that way, man. God.
Okay, well, let me ask you this, because you said that there were some verses in the New Testament. So, assuming that Jesus changes things for Christians,
exactly.
and that now we're not going to follow every little thing about tattoos and pork and maybe
Right.
even laying with a man,
Stoning your children
in Leviticus. So then, what do people point to in the New Testament in terms of homosexuality being wrong? And tell us, what's your conclusion on that?
Oh, well, they mainly it's mainly Paul that they're talking about, and some of the things.
I hate Paul, by the way.
And
I'm not a fan. I never liked the guy. He seems like he doesn't like women so much.
Yeah, well,
He killed all these people. He's like, yeah, he killed all these persecutes all these Christians, and then he's like, oh, I saw Jesus. Okay, what? He never even met Jesus. He's just a crazy dude. He like wanders around and has visions, and then we're like, oh yeah, this is one of the church fathers. Like he's never even met the guy.
well, you know, the cool thing.
I hate Paul, Saint Paul.
Well,
What a jerk. That's what I say. Saint Jerk. That's what I would call him.
I have a friend of mine who's a gay pastor, and he keeps telling me that Paul was gay, and that was his thorn. And so, you know, I have no idea how to follow that, but I do know that one of the things is that there's this constant understanding again of translating words and going back and I mean, we translate words because we think it sounds like where people will. There are people selling Bibles, right?
The Gideons.
Okay,
The racket.
Yeah, the racket.
That's right. They hold those hotels hostages and then charge them a fortune for those Bibles. I know how the Gideons work.
They're selling Bibles, and this one version came out, the TNIV, and instead of saying all men,
transsexual. No. Oh, okay.
They said instead of saying all men, because that's what it's basically speaking to, is that in Hebrew when you say all men, you're really talking to men and women. That's
mankind.
Right. And so,
Right.
so they rewrote it, men and women, or brothers and sisters. And there were people that were like tearing the pages out because they were like, you know, you can't change it like that. And it's like, no. This Bible, that it's talking to all of mankind,
Right,
all
right.
of people.
Right.
So when
Humans.
you start changing words and really looking at words and trying to use them the best way that we understand this, we start saying that nowhere really in the Bible, in the scriptures, does it talk about homosexuality in the way that we understand it, as in two men or two women having sex together, or even the idea of it, you know, a woman should not lay with a woman as she does with a man. You know, there are all these things, and then when you start going into the actual what was going on, what was being said, and what was being done, you're like, well, that's not what they were leaning towards. That's not what they were saying.
What were they leaning towards?
Well, the woman laying with a woman. They were talking about the idea that and again there was a I can't remember the actual phrase that was in the Greek, but it referred to the idea that when women lay with another woman, it wasn't in reference to their sexuality, but it was twisted towards
more about
this
cuddling.
idea of sexuality.
Okay.
No, it was
Exchanging recipes,
was the
decorating
idea-
tips. What?
It was and again, most of these things were very concerned with the idea of making more people. You know, the more people you have in this thing, the better it is. And so it was. It wasn't a
I
concern.
can't understand what you just said. It's all very vague. What? What is so? It's not sexual, but they want to make more people, so don't do it. What?
Well, what we're looking to do is we're trying to create more.
Who's weird?
So,
who's we?
So we as a culture, as a tribe.
Okay, the Hebrews.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're looking at how do we create more of us.
Right.
And the Hebrew culture created a tremendous amount.
Right.
They talk throughout, even in the Old Testament, the idea that there were more kids being grown and, drawn up and that there was this understanding that the more we procreate children, the bigger our tribe grows.
Right.
And the larger our tribe grows, the more strength we have. And so there was kind of an understanding, always a kind of a push towards having children, mainly men children.
Yes, sure.
So that men can have more children, and multiple wives. There was the understanding of that. So
back to that polyamory idea we mentioned in the last episode.
Yeah. It was a deep movement towards tribe. It was a tribal culture.
Right. Okay.
And the more you have, the better it is.
So if you've got lesbians,
they make soldiers, and they.
If you've got lesbians, then it doesn't. But you're saying we're not talking about lesbians when we
weren't talking about lesbians.
So then, how does women lying with women not mean lesbians? And also, if it doesn't mean lesbians, then how does it apply to stopping from making children?
Well, the idea is that if, and again, the idea of women laying with women had nothing to do with women having sex with each other.
Okay.
And that was the misunderstanding, misinterpretation. And what always continued to happen was that people said that is a direct connection to women having sex with each other. And it was like, no, that's not what they were referring to.
Okay.
That's not the idea was a larger idea than just, again, we become like crotch Christians that we believe we see it only in one way and not in the larger way.
Okay, but if it's not in a sexual way,
right,
then how does that stop from making children?
Well, what I'm saying is that there was an underlining going on at that time during that generation to create more kids,
right?
Create more people. So there was always this kind of understanding of that in one of the verses they talk about the idea that the man did not want to have sex with the woman, so he spilled his seed out before he had intercourse with her.
Whoops.
and then he immediately died.
Yeah,
because he did
Onan.
that. So there was this understanding that having more children, was what you were called to do.
Right.
And so that's why you would have servants and things like that you would
handmaids. Yeah.
Didn't.
So the idea then is that if you have
tribes.
Two women lying down together in the tent, they're not having sex, but that's just like some time that they could be having sex with men and getting pregnant.
More.
Is that the idea?
Well, there's an underlying idea of that. That's what the underlying concern is that women should be getting pregnant.
Okay. Well, we ended up back in the Old Testament again, Pastor. I'm trying to ask you.
We kind of bounce back and forth.
So what is it? So what is it about the New Testament? I mean, before we end this, I'm trying to preempt. So people are going to contact us presumably about this, and if you want to contact us about this, if you have strong opinions or any opinions you want to express about anything we've talked about today on the podcast, hit us up, write us an email at jesuschristthat'sfunny@gmail.com, and we'll respond to your questions and concerns on the air. But assuming people do have strong opinions and they hit us up and they say, hey, well,
and they do.
What's this? So I disagree, and
here's why.
Yeah, they're gonna bring up some verse in the New Testament, let's say, and what are they gonna bring up, Pastor? And what's your rejoinder? Let's preempt their challenge to you. Just give us a good example of something that people will bring up in the New Testament.
Let's see.
And explain why it doesn't mean that God hates gays, if you don't think it does.
Well, I don't think
you still haven't convinced me, by the way.
Do you think God does hate gays?
I think God definitely hates gays. No, I don't.
Do you think God hates cross-dressers?
I better hope not.
What I would hope...
It doesn't say anything about that, does it? A man should not...
Yeah, there is something now.
A man should not...
dress like a woman.
Wear the vestments of the woman.
That's it.
As a woman wears the vestments.
Right.
Or he should be put to death.
And I think that
with
is.
The sword.
With the sword and stoned.
With the stone.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I've already been stoned,
That Bob Dylan stone.
That's right.
Yeah. No, I think what ends up happening is that people first they read the scriptures. And I was talking to a young pastor yesterday, and he said that he's found that he cannot read the Bible without, a Strong's Concordance and, 3 commentaries, because he needs to understand what they're really talking about. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening, people read the stuff and they think that's what it means exactly. And they don't do the homework and the study to try to understand what does this verse really mean and what were they talking about. And if I was in a first century Jew, which, and a lot of things are written to first century Jews, what would I have heard? And how would I have heard?
Yeah, you have to filter it through this whole
and if you don't do
cultural
that,
conception.
you miss. Or if Paul's writing to Romans, what are Romans hearing? You're writing to a whole bunch of people, and it is a big deal. It is a major big deal, and that's why this constant understanding that God is not exclusive. God is inclusive.
Right.
And so when people start trying to be exclusive, it's like that's not anywhere in the scriptures. In fact, it's absolutely the opposite.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the overall point, is that whatever St. Paul says and whatever the you find in the New Testament or the Old Testament, the overall thrust of the message of Jesus seems to be kind of what you articulate on this podcast every week, which is like, hey, let's come and hang out and talk. I don't care if you call yourself a Christian. I don't care if you're a Jew. I don't care if you're a thief or a prostitute or whatever. This message is for everyone to hear.
Right.
And you're going to come to an understanding if you listen, and if it hits you, you're going to come to an understanding about how to live your life in a way where you're connected better to other people. And let's forget about the rules and the law.
Right.
Let's talk about how you're treating one another.
And that
seems to be the
and that's what
the thrust.
That seems to be that happens throughout the whole scripture. It just comes. It's constantly, God is constantly getting bigger, wider, and our revelation. The term progressive revelation is this great term. The idea that we progress in our revelation of God, understanding God. That God is not changing, but our understanding of God changes.
Right.
Yeah.
Progressive revelation. That's when each plague is worse.
That's right. Exactly.
In the final book of the New Testament there.
I like my progressive revelation. I may just write a book called that. I think it'd be good.
I heard that some of the 12-step groups that meet here are unhappy with you because of your plagiarism of the 12 steps.
Oh yeah. I had one of the guys get in my face the other day, and he was like, I did a thing called 10 Weeks to a Better Life, and it was based on the 12-step program. I synthesized a few of the steps and made it into 10.
Right, you're like these lazy alcoholics with their...
Oh, get on.
They're 12. Oh, we need 12.
All right, slowing down here. And the guy was like, you can't say the 12-step program. And we're like, I can say anything I want.
Right.
I'm not in the 12-step program. It's you guys that have decided that you legalistically will not allow that to be utilized within your groups. Great. I'm not in your groups.
Right.
So we can use it anywhere we want. And it took...
Did you pull out the Jesus card too?
Right.
I'm the pastor.
I did pull that out.
I'm on a mission from God.
I said, if you don't like it, really, that's okay. You can.
It's like
you don't have to stay here.
Pull out
there are 30 other places to go to meetings.
You pull out your signet ring and your diploma and your ordination certificate.
That's it.
You don't have one of these, do you? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess you better shut up.
No, he was really angry. It was like, there's some control issues going on.
Yeah, wow, an alcoholic with some control issues. Shocking.
Wow,
Can't imagine that. All right.
Are we going to get back into this one more time next week?
More on the gays?
Yeah.
I feel like
we've done it.
Our listeners might have homosexual fatigue.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a thing.
Let's see if we get any emails, because I'm sure there are a few people that out there that.
Let's see where it goes. Yeah, we're gonna be posting this in you're going on vacation, so while you're gone, we'll post these episodes and we'll see if we get anything back. So we'll be back in a couple weeks and we'll see.
That'll be really good.
Yeah.
And are you going to bring that girl over that doesn't believe in love?
May Durand, one of my colleagues on Sex on Kava. The other podcast I do. Yeah, I'd love to have her on the podcast. We'll see if we can get her.
That'd be great. I'd really like to see her.
Yeah, I think we've been getting good guests so far.
Yeah,
we had my mom and Anna, and next we could get May.
Who did we have before that?
I think that was it. Oh, Emily. Emily, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know if she still listens. I haven't seen her in a while.
I haven't seen her either. She would listen and come in and quote things.
Right.
It's a little scary at times.
Well, I know we still have people listening, so
yeah, we do.
I wonder if she's still among. If you're out there, Emily, drop us a line.
That's right.
We'd love to hear from you. All right, Pastor. Well, how can people get a hold of you?
The Sanctuary Church, ftl.org is our website, and we'd love to hear from you up there. And then we also have Facebook, and you can get us on there, the Sanctuary Church, FTL.
All right. Check out Sanctuary Church. You can find me on Snapchat, Instagram, or Twitter at Ethan is not funny. You can also check out the website for this podcast, which is jesuschristthat'sfunny.podbean.com. And you can write us an email at jesuschristthat'sfunny@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And one more thing, please give us a rating and a review on iTunes. That will help us out because we need that. We need we need a boost. We want to get the message out to as many people as possible. So help us spread the word, as it were. And much like the early church would have, I suppose, Pastor?
Yeah.
Go out and go ye into all the world and preach the podcast to every creature and every nation. You heard it here first. Yeah, please do that. So check us out on iTunes and give us a rating and a review. That would help us out. All right, well, that brings us to the end of this week's episode of Jesus Christ That's Funny. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.